Yokai, an uncharted world of folklore. These are the journeys of the Yokaiologist. Our mission, to explore new mythical worlds and their inhabitants, to seek out new yokai and tell their untold, entertaining, enchanted stories, and to dare to create what no poet and painter has ever created before. Tengu in rain faces enemy. Fierce winds trail from katana. Yokai Koo! Hey everyone, Stratton here, your favorite Yokaiologist, coming to you from beautiful Northern California. Here to talk to you today about how it is that I became a Yokaiologist. Yokai, any mysterious, unearthly being of a phenomenon. A Yokaiologist, someone who studies them. So, I've always considered myself a writer. I mean, ever since I could literally hold a pencil, I've been writing. Poetry, short stories. I've been working on a series of novels for like 10 years. I've written musicals. I've written plays. I've written 3 screenplays. Working on about a dozen more. Hundreds of poetry pieces. Many of which I've won poetry slams with. Hundreds of haiku. Many of which I've won haiku battles with. So, basically, I write anything. So, one day, a good friend of mine, who I met doing poetry slams, probably about 10 years ago, by the name of Tazuya Yamaguchi, expressed interest in collaborating with me on a comic strip project. He would do the art, and I would do the writing and the story. I was very familiar with his art style, being that he was the one who had been doing all of my different bands' poster art for like the last 6 years. So I was intrigued by the idea. We met up. He showed me some of his comic ideas and different images. And when he showed me a few images of some different yokai that he had been drawing, I was completely captivated. Tazuo, being from Japanese descent, has always been fascinated with yokai folklore, but he had just never drawn any until then. And me, ever since I was a little kid, I've been fascinated with folklore. Now, I'll get more into Taz on my next blog, because his story is long and it needs his own blog. But as for me, I grew up watching my parents play Dungeons and Dragons. I've always loved folklore and fairy tales, anything fantasy, science fiction, basically anything magical and mysterious. Everything from Lord of the Rings to Jim Henson, Star Wars, Lewis Carroll, Shel Silverstein to Dr. Seuss. I mean, I loved it all. Which is why a lot of my screenplays are fantasy-based. So anyway, we'd come up with a few different ideas for comic strips that weren't about yokai. But it wasn't long at all before we came up with our first yokai comic gag, which we call Yokai Diaries. At this point, everything else that was on the table was wiped off. And it's been everything yokai ever since. And thus, we began stretching the portal wide open into the land of yokai. And the Yokaiologists absorbed. 2 poet storytellers assimilate into the mysterious realm of yokai to discover and then reveal to you these amazing mythical creatures, their cultures, and traditions, and to tell the many unknown stories from the most popular to the most obscure of all the yokai. And so, after a year and a half of documenting this folkloric adventure through haiku, comics, writings, animation, and illustration, the lab of the Yokaiologist has created 2 comic strips, Yokai Diaries, in which we have over 60 panels, as well as Yokai Academy. We're also in the works on multiple illustrated yokai catalogs, an A to Z, one that's just a full-on story. We have Yokai Ku, and we've also created numerous animated yokai shorts. So stay tuned in to see what we've got coming out of our lab. It's literally almost endless. I mean, if you like yokai, you're gonna love what we have in store for you. This is Stratton, your favorite Yokaiologist. And you can always hit me up on Twitter at Yokaiologist, as well as find us on Facebook, Google, Instagram, Pinterest, YouTube. And please, stay tuned in, tell your friends, and you will be amazed at what you see coming out of the Yokaiologist lab. Thanks for watching.